Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Today's video will contain spoilers from the second season of Andor. Sometimes Star Wars rhymes. That's something George Lucas said a long time ago, and sometimes it just happens naturally because when you have characters and lore that is so rich, like what we have in the Star Wars franchise, things just seem to connect naturally. When they put Luthen Rael on that life support machine in that sterile room in the Lena So hospital, I was immediately transported to another scene, the death of Anakin Skywalker. These are two very similar looking scenes. Things are framed in the same way. It's in a similar location, a medical facility, and we're also dealing with a person on their deathbed. But the actual individuals these scenes focus on are quite different. In many ways, they're the complete opposite of one another. Luthen Rael is at the end of his life, a life in which he sacrificed himself to save the galaxy. Anakin is at the end of his life, a life in which he sacrificed the galaxy to save his relationship. The true irony of it all is that Luthen Rael will probably be forgotten by history or remembered as a monster, whereas Anakin Skywalker is remembered as a hero, as someone who died fighting against tyranny. In our last video on Luthen Royale, we took a deep dive into this question of free will and determination. A timeless question about what really drives a person's actions. Personally, I think both forces are at play. And Luthen Royale is the perfect example of that balance. He has a deterministic mind. He's pragmatic, calculating, always mapping actions to consequences. It's how he sees the world. But his soul, well, his soul believes in free will, not just for himself, but for the entire galaxy. This is why he chooses to fight against the Empire. It's that tension between cold logic and burning idealism that makes Luthen so unpredictable. The deterministic side of him knows he's doomed. He understands that the scale of the resistance he's igniting will eventually consume him. It's inevitable. He even tells a young Kleya this before their first strike against the Empire. But it's also the free will side of him, the irrational, defiant part that decides to move forward anyway, against his own interest, in pursuit of something higher, some deeper moral truth. That's why Luthen isn't just fighting the Empire, he is the rebellion. He's rejecting tyranny in every form, not just the political kind, but also the existential kind as well. This idea that our past, our programming, our trauma must dictate our future, while Luthen Rael refuses to be ruled by fate. And it's at that point he ceases to be Sergeant Lear, just another cog in the Imperial machine. He grabs hold of his own destiny and fate, and he becomes Luthen Rael. Anakin Skywalker's entire life seems to be predetermined for him. He's literally born as a slave in chains, and when he's freed from those chains, new chains are placed around his shoulders in the form of the Chosen One prophecy. This labels him as an individual who will bring balance to the Force. It's a lot of weight to carry for your entire life, and it will ultimately affect how you view things. Anakin also has Force visions all throughout his life that all become self-fulfilling prophecies in one way or another, especially the one that is focused on the death of Padme. As a result, he has lived his entire life believing that he has no choice in life. The path is set before him, and the pressure of the Chosen One prophecy creates many problems for him, including isolating him from the rest of his class within the Jedi Order. Whereas Luthen Rael chooses free will when he strikes out against the Empire. Anakin believes that he's acting out in free will for the first time when he joins the Empire by attacking Mace Windu in Chancellor Palpatine's office. But unlike Luthen's decision to fight the Empire, which is guided by deep moral values and serious contemplation over several months, Anakin's decision to cut Mace Windu's arm off was emotional, a spur-of-the-moment impulse, which means it's not free will. It's a result of years of manipulation and dark side images implanted in his head by his supposed friend and mentor Sheev Palpatine. Anakin has acted out of fear. This is why Luthen Rael is a puppeteer, and unfortunately Anakin Skywalker is just a sock puppet. He's used by everyone. When we look at Luthen Rael, he is clearly a very shadowy figure. Sure, Dimway would say that the force around Luthen Rael is quite dark because of the death and destruction he must wrought on the galaxy. I know there have been a lot of theories about whether Luthen Rael is a Jedi or not, and I'm sorry to disappoint you guys, but Andor is just not that kind of show. I really don't think they would do something like that. More importantly, look at Luthen Rael's actions. He doesn't act like a Jedi at all.
You promised.
I lie. Get used to it.
He also teaches Kleya how to use her emotions in the same way as a Sith Lord would teach his apprentice.
All you know now is how much you hate. You bank that, you hide that. You keep it alive until you know what to do with it.
He also straight up pulls a Palpatine here when he's trying to goad Kleya into, blowing up that bridge full of Imperial soldiers.
Do it.
Do it.
Lay down right here, do it.
Of course, unlike Palpatine, Luthen isn't trying to control his apprentice. He's trying to test her. This is so he can better gauge whether she's ready to take the plunge with him. The bombing represents the start of their personal war, the death of innocence, and the loss of any chance at a normal life. For someone as young as Clea, pushing that button means entering into a life defined by secrecy, sacrifice, and bloodshed. No more pleasant brunches, no more ice cream sundaes.
Lord.
Now, Luthen pushes the button for Clea at the last minute. That's because he's already taken the plunge towards war. When he defected from the Empire, he already damned himself. And so a few more deaths for him doesn't really matter that much. What he really wants is for Clea to take a deeper look at him while he's committing the action. If she can't understand what she'll lose by joining the revolution, at least this way she can take a look at what she'll become.
Look at me. And turn.
It's also good spycraft not to telegraph that you know a bridge is about to blow up, although that's like overly paranoid if you ask me. A lot of people consider Luthen an extremely cynical and cold individual. He's done some really rough things, especially to Lonnie and the planet Dagorman, but these are all in service to a higher goal, to make sure the rebellion will succeed. He's turned his mind into a sunless place. He's condemned to use the tools of his enemies to defeat them. He burns his life for a sunrise that he knows he'll never see. Luthen Rael literally lives on the dark side. He breathes the dark side, but he does it all in service to the light, which makes him kind of like a gray Jedi. I don't know. It's kind of like Mace Windu's Vapad form of lightsaber combat or something. Now, Anakin is the complete opposite of Luthen Rael. He lives and breathes the light side. As a Jedi, his entire training revolves around understanding the light side of the Force and using to protect the weak and innocent. If you take a look at Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars, he is by definition a classical war hero. He leads from the front. He inspires confidence and admiration from the men. He's a brilliant tactician and is generally victorious on the field. But if you take a step back and look at the way he fights, all the war crimes he's committed, all the combatants he's executed on the battlefield, like Trench,
Admiral, it was a pleasure.
Dooku. Who's that guy? That senator that held Satine Kryze hostage? And also, at the end of the day, right, he's in service of a republic which is completely controlled by the Sith. Anakin has been living in the light side ideology. He even teaches the Jedi code to Ahsoka Tano and does a decent job at it, but despite it all, the Jedi, Anakin, they all are doing this in the service of the dark side and are helping to bring the Republic to an end and facilitate the rise of the Empire. So both characters' outward appearance kind of hides their true effect on the galaxy. What ultimately turns Anakin when he's in Palpatine's office is not actually love for Padme, it's more like obsession. If we take a closer look at their relationship in the Clone Wars and also Episode 2, we begin to see what is actually a very unhealthy relationship between two very different people, not just in age, but also in personality, maturity, and ideology.
We need a system where the politicians sit down and discuss the problem, agree what's in the best interest of all the people, and then do it.
He reminds me of those like cringy people who are always like, "Oh, America's not a democracy." It's like they went to their first civic class and now they want to go on the internet and tell everyone what they've learned.
That's exactly what we do. The trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to.
By whom? Who's gonna make them?
I don't know. Someone.
You?
Anakin is impulsive. He's instinctual, and who can blame him? He's so powerful in the Force, he's never really had to do anything but rely on that power. But that also limits him quite a lot. It makes him less of a deep thinker and easier to manipulate. But more importantly, his supposed love for Padme is driven by a deep desperation, a deep longing that he has had since he was a little boy. Nothing makes Anakin more fearful than the thought of being alone. I mean, he was born a slave with no rights, no ability to control his future. This sense was only made worse when the Jedi removed him from his mother and left her behind. And later, when she gets killed by a bunch of Tusken Raiders, that leads to him committing one of his most dark side actions. He massacres the entire village.
I won't lose you the way I lost my mother.
So Anakin again walks in the light side, but his actions oftentimes are in service of the dark side. During the Clone Wars, we see on several occasions how jealous and possessive Anakin can get over Padme, especially because of her working relationship with Clovis.
Why is it that when Clovis is around, your excuse is always that you're doing it for the Republic?
Anakin, please.
You know, maybe I'll just leave you here.
Annie.
I understand why Anakin is jealous, even if Padme has been nothing but faithful to him. What bothers me is the way he talks to her, the way he threatens to leave her in the jail cell like a child. He lacks confidence in the strength of their relationship, and that's something Palpatine will really lean into and exploit.
I would like you to spearhead this investigation. Work closely with Rush Clovis and find and expose the secret accounts.
It's perfectly okay to be a little jealous every now and then of your significant other. I mean, that is just you caring. And in Anakin's defense, Rush Clovis is a really sneaky bastard, and he's clearly trying to get with Padme. But what you do with that jealousy is important. Do you try to counter your jealousy with rational thinking, love, and most importantly, trust for your partner to handle the situation herself? Or do you let your emotions take over and lose control?
Clovis, no.
Get away from her.
Anakin, no.
Look, I don't want to be too hard on Anakin. He is being manipulated and used by everyone around him since he was a baby, but this is not a healthy relationship. The passion burns too brightly, and as a result, their relationship is super fragile. Anakin becomes more and more possessive of Padme. He wants to control her, and that's not what you do to someone that you love. If you love someone, you let them be free, even if it means they don't want to be with you. Because love is one of the most precious and selfless feelings you can have for another person. Love is about service. Love is about trust, and it's about sacrifice.
No!
Let her go, Anakin!
Anakin.
Let her go!
Obi-Wan Kenobi understands love very well, and so when he tells Anakin to let Padme go, he means it not only physically, but also emotionally, because that's what he did when he loved Satine Kryze. He was able to let her go. He actually told her he was willing to throw away his entire life in the Jedi Order to be with her if only she had said the words. And unfortunately, she never did. And that is service. That is selflessness. That is true love. Obi-Wan Kenobi gets it. Anakin literally is unable to let Padme go, and I'm not just talking about her neck, I'm talking about this image he's created of her in his mind. Anakin doesn't really understand Padme. You know, what he's done, this empire he's created, goes against everything Padme ever believed in.
Becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of, and I'm doing it for you.
If only he had paid closer attention to their conversations. You know, when he thought Padme was flirting with him, they were actually exchanging political ideas. His lack of understanding of Padme is due to the fact that he built this image of Padme in his head almost like a decade ago.
Are you an angel? What?
You know, when he was like a 10-year-old. I remember when I was young. I remember when I was a teenager and I had my first few crushes. I remember how embarrassing it was when I went up to these people and actually asked them out without really understanding who they were. And that's because I was obsessed with the girls that I had crushes with. You know, like I built this image in my head of how they were and how they would interact with me. And it was all bullshit. It was all in my mind. And that is exactly what Anakin is doing. He's obsessed with Padme. This is not love. He's built a prison for her. He's built this image of his life, his world, and at the center of it, Padme must be there. She's the foundation, the cornerstone.
The thought of not being with you, I can't breathe.
You know, love is more subtle than the melodramatic stuff that Anakin whispers to Padme. In real life, love is carried out in small, little actions that are oftentimes unseen. You know, they're just ordinary things you do for someone that you like, you know, like cooking a meal, bringing them some water at night. That's love. It's simple stuff like that. Love is what Clay and Luthen have for one another.
Am I your daughter now?
What is she used for?
I have to think about that.
We'll be whoever we have to. It won't always be up to us. I'm Luthen now, you're Clay. Everything else is up for grabs.
It's not the most conventional type of love, but, you know, it's there.
I didn't mean to upset you.
I'm not upset. Just hungry.
I'd seen.
How can Clea not love Luthen for saving her life all those years ago on his ship? How can Luthen not love Clea for saving him from the Empire?
I need to know you're making a choice. I lived most of my life without ever realizing that that was a possibility.
You know, Luthen might not express his love for Clea as skillfully as Anakin does for Padme, but just like how Tony Gilroy likes to employ, show don't tell instead of direct exposition, Luthen Rael also shows his love for Clea in very subtle ways. For instance, he doesn't try to control Clea at all. He wants her to understand the choices she's about to make by joining the rebellion. And when he makes that choice, he continues to teach and protect her. He doesn't just shove her out there. You see, Luthen isn't trying to shape Clea into the form that he wants her to be. Instead, he's simply just providing her all the tools she needs to find her own way. This isn't about what Clea can do for Luthen, it's about what Luthen can do for Clea. Everything that Luthen does at the deepest layer is about sacrifice. After his King Lear moment in the storm, he took a very decisive turn towards this way of life. Perhaps he's driven by the ghosts of all the people he's killed, or perhaps he's just driven by the guilt of all the people he didn't save. But Luthen Rael is the best type of hero. The type that doesn't seek recognition, that isn't doing good deeds just in service of making themselves feel better. He's doing this because of some deeper moral character he has that is completely untarnished by his ego or emotions. And so even though he knows he'll die at the end of this, until his last breath, Luthen acts like a hero in the most epic sense. And because his relationship with Clea is built on love, in that last moment, Clea Jason Bournes her way into Lina So Hospital and in a true act of selflessness, kills her father. I mean, this has to be devastating for Clea to do, but Luthen has taught her the right way to handle her emotions and to understand what love actually is. And so in his last moment, Clea finally gives her father the thing he desires the most: calm, kindness, kinship, and love. He finally gets the inner peace he deserves, and it's reflected in his final resting place, a clean white void. Unfortunately for Anakin, when he is entombed in that horrific room with brutal robot surgeons, there's no one there to free him from his mistakes. His obsessions with Padme destroyed her, killed her, left her broken-hearted. And his curse is to stay alive for another 2 decades being haunted by her image.